By the end, you'll know how a logo, a signature, and a good story can manufacture a real person for millions. Today, 33 historical figures your teachers lied about they were marketing mascots. We'll watch Coca-Cola reshape Santa and a poem remake Paul Revere. Stay for number 33, because the last one is insane. Let's start with St. Nicholas and how advertising rewrote December. St. Nicholas became the Coca-Cola Santa everyone knows. A winter saint became the world's biggest Christmas brand mascot. In 19th century America, St. Nicholas looked more like a bishop. Cartoonist Thomas Nast drew him plump at Harper's Weekly, year after year. Then Coca-Cola hired illustrator Haddon Sundblom during the early 1930s. He painted a rosy, friendly Santa inspired by Clement Clark Moore. Ads placed Santa in living rooms, holding bottles, smiling warmly. Department stores copied the look, then hired Santas to match. Suddenly, the red suit felt ancient, even though it wasn't. Isn't it wild how one ad campaign rewired childhood memories? 2. Cleopatra was recast as a cigarette and perfume icon. Cleopatra's image sold modern desire long after her kingdom fell. After Napoleon's Egypt campaign, Europe caught a fever for pharaohs. By the late 1800s, posters dressed Cleopatra in glittering fantasy. French and British cigarette brands used her as exotic shorthand. Perfume makers borrowed coal eyes and asp bracelets for labels. Stage stars played her in London and New York, feeding the craze. Every new playbill made her look less historical, more glamorous. Meanwhile, archaeologists kept digging, and the marketing kept spinning. Who needs facts when a queen can sell smoke and scent? 3. Vikings got horned helmets from costumes and tourism. The horned Viking helmet became history's most stubborn costume mistake. Real Viking Age helmets found in Scandinavia do not have horns. The horns exploded in 19th century opera, not 9th century raids. Designer Karl Emil Doppler dressed Wagner's warriors with dramatic horns. Those stage images spread through postcards, textbooks, and cheap prints. Tour guides in Norway and Denmark leaned in because tourists paid. By the early 1900s, horned helmets showed up at parades everywhere. Then sports fans adopted them, turning myth into game day identity. How did theater props beat archaeology in the public imagination? 4. Paul Revere's Midnight Ride was boosted by a poem. A single poem turned Paul Revere into the lone warning hero. In 1775, Revere rode toward Lexington, but he wasn't alone. William Dawes and Samuel Prescott also carried messages through Massachusetts. Revere was detained, while Prescott slipped through and reached Concord. Decades later, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a dramatic 1861 poem. He simplified the chaos into one writer, one mission, one night. The verse spread in classrooms, shaping memory during a tense era. Suddenly, Revere became a brand for patriotism, prints, and souvenirs. Doesn't literature sometimes win fights that historians already settled? 5. Christopher Columbus was rebranded to sell a national holiday. Columbus became a civic mascot long after his voyages ended. In 1892, the United States planned a huge Columbus anniversary. City staged parades, speeches, and school plays about brave discovery. Italian-American communities embraced him, facing prejudice and violence then. Groups like the Knights of Columbus pushed his name into public ritual. Politicians liked the tidy origin story, easy to print and chant. Posters showed shining ships, while harsher realities stayed offstage. By the 20th century, the holiday sold unity, not nuance. How did a complicated navigator become a simple national logo? 6. Joan of Arc became a mass-produced patriot poster girl. Joan of Arc kept marching, even after she died at Rouen. French leaders needed symbols, and a teenage saint fits perfectly. In the 1800s, painters dressed her in shining armor and flags. During World War I, posters cast her as France's fearless protector. Factories printed her image on postcards, stamps, and charity certificates. In 1920, her canonization supercharged the message for global audiences. Every retelling softened politics, sharpening the halo and the sword. Tourism in Orléans turned her story into annual pageantry. When does a martyr become merchandise without anyone noticing? 7. Napoleon became a brandy label more than a man. Napoleon's name ended up on bottles, menus, and bar shelves worldwide. After his exile, Europe still craved anything linked to the emperor. French producers labeled brandy and cognac Napoleon to signal quality. The word implied prestige, even when Napoleon never tasted that drink. Restaurants named sauces and desserts after him, selling drama with dinner. Meanwhile, caricatures shrank him, birthing the so-called Napoleon complex trope. Two competing images spread: glamorous conqueror and tiny angry man. Both were easier to market than the real Corsican strategist. Which Napoleon did you meet first, the man or the label? 8. Shakespeare's face was used to sell cigarettes and soap. Shakespeare's portrait became a product stamp, not just a playwright. In Victorian Britain, bard worship mixed easily with mass advertising. Stratford-upon-Avon souvenirs spread his face onto mugs and tins. Tobacco companies printed Shakespeare cards, urging collectors to buy more. Soap and perfume brands borrowed his aura to look refined. Actors posed as Hamlet, and posters sold tickets like merchandise. Publishers marketed cheap editions, promising culture for pocket change. Can a genius survive when his face becomes packaging everywhere? 9. Albert Einstein became the world's most borrowed genius mascot. Einstein's hair became shorthand for genius in a single glance. In Princeton, photographers followed him like today's celebrity press. One famous tongue-out photo turned into posters, mugs, and t-shirts. Companies used his face to sell computers, tutors, even energy drinks. His wild look suggested creativity, even when the product was dull. Meanwhile, his actual work on relativity stayed mostly unread by buyers. Licensing deals and estates fought over who could print him. The scientist became a cartoon of smart, easy to recognize. Have you ever learned physics from Einstein, or just his eyebrows? 10. King Tut sparked Tut mania that sold everything in 1922. A teenage pharaoh's tomb triggered a global shopping frenzy overnight. In Egypt, Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's tomb for Lord Carnarvon. Newspapers described gold beds, jeweled masks, and sealed chambers below. Soon London and New York stores sold Tut-style jewelry and dresses. Cigarette cases, lamps, and even furniture copied lotus and scarab motifs. Rumors of a curse added spice, especially after Carnarvon died. Movies and stage shows borrowed the look, turning archaeology into spectacle. Egyptian revival design spread fast, even into everyday kitchenware. Who expected an ancient king to launch modern consumer culture? 11. Amelia Earhart became a product endorser while still flying. Earhart didn't just fly, her name moved products across America. After her Atlantic solo flight, fame followed her into every room. Publishers booked lectures, and managers shaped her as modern womanhood. She launched Amelia Earhart Fashions, selling practical dresses and travel suits. Ads used her smile beside airplanes, promising courage you could buy. Meanwhile, she trained in California, chasing longer routes and harder weather. Her Lockheed Electra plans turned headlines into suspenseful weekly episodes. Then the Pacific Surge turned her into legend, boosting the brand. How often does a pilot become a logo before finishing the journey? 12. Buffalo Bill sold the Wild West as a traveling brand. Buffalo Bill turned frontier life into a touring show business empire. William F. Cody branded himself with buckskins, long hair, and rifles. He staged Wild West shows with bison, cowboys, and Lakota performers. In Chicago and later Europe, crowds watched staged attacks and rescues. Annie Oakley dazzled with trick shots, making headlines in London. Posters promised authentic danger, while managers controlled every moment carefully. Cody sold tickets, souvenirs, and even his own biography at exits. Real West history got edited into simple good guys and bad guys. Was it America's past, or just the first blockbuster on wheels? 13. Annie Oakley turned sharpshooting into a national advertisement. Annie Oakley's aim became a selling point for the whole Wild West. Born Phoebe Ann Moses in Ohio, she hunted to support family. She joined Cody's show and hit tiny targets from moving horses. European royals watched her split playing cards, then begged repeats. Gunmakers loved the publicity, sending her engraved rifles and ammunition. Newspapers called her Little Sure Shot, a nickname that stuck. She wrote letters defending women shooters, turning sport into empowerment marketing. Even injuries and train crashes became comeback stories on posters. How did quiet discipline become a loud brand without losing respect? 14. Daniel Boone was packaged as frontier hero for politics. Daniel Boone's Frontier became a product, packaged for Eastern readers. In Kentucky, Boone explored and fought while settlers pushed westward. John Filson published Boone's adventures, polishing him into plain legend. The book sold fast, and Boone became a symbol of destiny. Dime novels later exaggerated everything, adding impossible rescues and massacres. Boone himself complained, saying he was not that fearless always. Yet politicians loved the myth because it justified expansion neatly. Artists painted him with coonskin cap, rifle, and noble stare. Do you remember Boone the man or Boone the advertisement? 15. Davy Crockett's coonskin cap was a merchandising machine. Davy Crockett's hat created a retail stampede, not just nostalgia. Kids watched the Alamo story, then begged parents for coonskin caps. Factories rushed cheap versions into Sears catalogs and five-and-dime stores. Song records, lunchboxes, and toy rifles followed the same simple logo. Real Crockett had a complicated political life in Tennessee and Washington. But television trimmed him into frontier charm and heroic sacrifice. Merch sales soared, proving history could be manufactured at scale. 16. Johnny Appleseed was a real man turned into slogan. Johnny Appleseed became a folk logo for wholesome American nature. The real man was John Chapman, born in Massachusetts, roaming west. He planted nurseries in Ohio and Indiana, selling young trees cheaply. He followed Swedenborgian faith, preaching quietly while carrying apple seeds. Later stories made him barefoot, scattering seeds randomly, smiling forever. In reality, he guarded orchards, claimed land, and negotiated with settlers. Frontier towns used his legend to market festivals and local pride. Cartoons and schoolbooks simplified him into kindness, not business. Isn't it funny how a nurseryman became a walking slogan? 17. Betsy Ross was marketed as the flag's inventor. Betsy Ross became the flag's creator through one family's story. In Philadelphia, Ross ran an upholstery shop during the Revolution. Decades later, her grandson William Canby told a dramatic meeting tale. He claimed George Washington asked for a flag, and Ross improved stars. No documents confirm it, but the story fits centennial celebration needs. By 1876, parades and textbooks wanted a simple, patriotic origin scene. Artists painted her sewing calmly, while generals watched with approval. Soon, she was on postcards, stamps, and schoolroom murals everywhere. Why argue evidence when a sewing needle makes such tidy symbolism? 18. Pocahontas was rewritten into a feel-good colonial brand. Pocahontas became a friendly bridge story, sold to many generations. Her real name was Matoaka, a Powhatan girl living near Jamestown. Captain John Smith later told stories of rescue and dramatic mercy. She was taken captive, converted, and renamed Rebecca for English audiences. John Rolfe married her, and promoters shipped her to London society. Portraits dressed her as gentle nobility, hiding the violence around her. After her death, her image kept working, smoothing colonial conflict into romance. Films and cartoons repeated the makeover because it sells comfort. What if the mascot version replaced the person completely in memory? 19. King Arthur became a trademark for hotels and beer. King Arthur went from medieval legend to a modern commercial label. Stories from Geoffrey of Monmouth and later Thomas Malory spread widely. Victorian Britain revived Camelot, craving chivalry during industrial change. Soon pubs and hotels named themselves Round Table to attract travelers. Beer labels used swords and crowns, promising strength and tradition. Tour companies in Cornwall and Wales sold Arthur sites with certainty. Meanwhile, historians argued whether any Arthur existed beyond folklore. The uncertainty barely mattered because the brand worked either way. Isn't ambiguity perfect for marketing since nobody can fact-check it? 20. Robin Hood became a mascot for charity and commerce. Robin Hood's green hat became a symbol used for everything. Medieval ballads set him in Sherwood Forest, robbing rich travelers. Victorian writers softened him into a noble outlaw with moral rules. Nottingham promoted Sherwood tourism, selling arrows, hats, and souvenirs. Charity drives borrowed his name, promising help for the poor. Hollywood films added romance, swagger, and perfect archery on cue. Each remake rewrote his enemies, keeping the brand safely timeless. Whether real or not, Robin became a ready-made message machine. Who wouldn't click a hero that feels rebellious but still wholesome? 21. William Tell became a freedom logo across Europe. William Tell's apple shop became a shortcut for Swiss freedom. The legend says Tell defied Habsburg rulers in the Swiss Alps. Friedrich Schiller dramatized him, and European audiences loved the rebellion. Rossini's opera later added unforgettable music, spreading Tell's name globally. Suddenly, his crossbow appeared on posters, coins, and festival banners. Swiss brands used Tell to sell reliability, from knives to watches. Historians questioned the tale's origins, but the logo kept marching. Tourists posed with crossbows in Altdorf, chasing the story's thrill. Isn't it easier to buy freedom than to study medieval politics? 22. Spartacus became a rebel brand more than a person. Spartacus became the universal rebel, printed on posters for decades. He was a Thracian gladiator who led a massive slave uprising. In Italy, his army defeated Roman forces, shocking the Republic's elites. Ancient sources disagree on details, leaving gaps for later storytellers. In the 1950s, Howard Fast wrote a novel during political pressure. Stanley Kubrick's film made Spartacus a global symbol of defiance. The famous "I am Spartacus" moment turned rebellion into a catchphrase. Merch and slogans followed, while the real revolt stayed messy. Do we remember a man or the brand of resistance? 23. Julius Caesar became a permanent symbol for power branding. Caesar's name stopped being a person and became a power label. After his assassination in Rome, successors used Caesar to claim legitimacy. Over time, Kaiser and Tsar echoed Caesar across Germany and Russia. The word became shorthand for supreme ruler, even outside Roman history. Modern companies borrowed it too, from casinos to shaving brands. Every use suggests authority, even when selling snacks or vacations. Meanwhile, the real Julius Caesar wrote books, campaigned, and played politics. That complex life gets flattened into one word, meaning boss. When a name becomes a title, who still cares about biography? 24. Marie Antoinette's "Let them eat cake with smear copy." One fake quote helped turn Marie Antoinette into history's villain queen. During the French Revolution, pamphlets attacked her as Austrian outsider. Versailles gossip painted her frivolous, even when she tried reforms. The famous cake line appears earlier in Rousseau, not her mouth. But it fit the mood, so printers repeated it like advertising copy. Cartoons showed starving Paris crowds and a clueless queen above them. Every retelling made her colder, and the slogan stuck permanently. Even today, movies use the line to signal elite cruelty fast. Isn't a catchy sentence sometimes deadlier than any real evidence? 25. Rasputin was sold as a supervillain for tabloids. Rasputin became Russia's cartoon villain, bigger than the real man. Grigory Rasputin arrived in St. Petersburg as a Siberian holy wanderer. At court, Empress Alexandra trusted him with sick heir Alexei's episodes. Rumors exploded: hypnosis, scandal, secret control, and endless corruption. Newspapers and gossip sheets loved the chaos, turning whispers into certainty. In 1916, Prince Felix Yusupov led a dramatic assassination plot. His later stories added poison, bullets, and rivers, amplifying the legend. Films and songs kept selling Rasputin as unstoppable monster energy. Do you notice how villains grow whenever the audience wants one? 26. Mata Hari was marketed as the ultimate femme fatale. Mata Hari's name became a brand for seductive danger worldwide. She was Margaretha Zell, a Dutch woman performing in Paris. Her dance persona borrowed faux Javanese costumes, selling exotic mystery to elites. When World War I began, she traveled easily, raising spy suspicions. French authorities arrested her, and the trial turned into theater. In 1917, she was executed, and tabloids wrote their own ending. Later stories inflated her into master spy, despite shaky evidence. Movies dressed her in jewels, because truth is less profitable. How did a struggling performer become espionage's most famous mascot? 27. Billy the Kid was packaged as the West's teen outlaw. Billy the Kid became America's teen outlaw brand, endlessly rebooted. In New Mexico, he went by Henry McCarty and William Bonney. The Lincoln County War blurred lawmen, ranchers, and gunfighters together. Pat Garrett hunted him, and the chase became public entertainment. After Billy died, dime novels exaggerated killings and heroic swagger. Photographs and posters fixed his face, even when details stayed fuzzy. Hollywood later added romance, jokes, and perfect one-liners at showdowns. Tourism in Fort Sumner sells the legend beside the grave. Did you learn a biography or a screenplay with cowboy props? 28. Blackbeard became a logo for pirate tourism and rum. Blackbeard's terrifying look became a cheerful brand for souvenirs. Edward Teach sailed the Carolina coast, commanding Queen Anne's revenge. Stories say he tied slow-burning fuses into his beard before battle. In 1718, naval forces under Robert Maynard hunted him near Ocracoke. Yet later books turned him into a swaggering mascot of freedom. Coastal towns sell Blackbeard tours, hats, and rum with his name. The real pirate was organized crime, not cartoon adventure. So why do we buy his grin while ignoring his victims? 29. Marco Polo was used to brand exotic Silk Road goods. Marco Polo became a shortcut word for faraway adventure and luxury. In Venice, he returned from Asia telling stories of Kublai Khan. He dictated accounts in prison, working with writer Rustichello of Pisa. Readers loved the wonders, but skeptics questioned what he actually saw. That doubt didn't slow marketers, who needed an exotic name. Hotels, restaurants, and clothing lines borrowed Marco Polo for instant travel. Even games and puzzles use his name to signal exploration. The man becomes a passport stamp, not a complicated medieval merchant. 30. Gutenberg became a printing mascot for publishers and fairs. Gutenberg's name became a seal of credibility for the printing world. In Mainz, Johannes Gutenberg developed movable metal type for books. His Bible amazed Europe, and printers copied the method rapidly. Centuries later, publishers used Gutenberg to market tradition and trust. Fairs and museums built replica presses, letting visitors crank pages. Schools taught him as lone inventor, ignoring partners like Johann Fust. Lawsuits and finances vanished from the story because they're messy. Now Gutenberg means print itself, stamped on awards and buildings. When invention becomes legend, who remembers the business fights behind it? 31. Florence Nightingale was turned into a nursing brand icon. Nightingale's lamp became a symbol brighter than her actual reforms. In the Crimean War, she led nurses to Scutari's crowded military hospitals. Reports described filth, infection, and shortages shocking the British public. She organized kitchens, laundry, and sanitation, cutting deaths dramatically over time. Newspapers called her the Lady with the Lamp, perfect for posters. Charities printed her silhouette to raise money for hospitals and training. Her statistics work, and charts were harder to sell than romance. Yet that mascot image helped fund the nursing profession's expansion. Did you picture a lamp first or a stubborn, data-driven organizer? 32. Louis Pasteur became the face of pure food marketing. Pasteur's name became a purity stamp on milk, beer, and labels. In France, Louis Pasteur showed microbes spoil food and spread disease. His pasteurization method heated liquids, killing germs without ruining taste. Dairies promoted pasteurized milk as modern safety for urban families. Brewers and vintners used his science to protect batches from souring. Governments debated regulation, while marketers turned the process into reassurance. People stopped picturing laboratories, imagining clean farms and honest bottles. Pasteur's portrait appeared in classrooms, then on institute fundraising posters. Isn't it odd when a scientist becomes a brand for cleanliness? 33. Thomas Crapper was promoted as the toilet's inventor. Thomas Crapper's name became bathroom comedy, then a fake invention story. In Victorian London, Crapper ran a plumbing company serving wealthy homes. He improved fittings and promoted flush toilets with flashy showroom displays. Royal warrants later boosted his reputation, but he wasn't the inventor. Flush designs existed earlier, from John Harrington to later engineers. Still, soldiers and travelers spread jokes, linking his name to toilets. 20th century writers repeated the myth because it's memorable and clean. Now souvenir shops sell Crapper humor, keeping the branding alive. Have you ever checked the timeline or just laughed and moved on?